I used to think that home meant safety. The smell of my mom's cinnamon rolls on Saturday mornings, the sun spilling across our old oak floors, and my dad whistling while he read the paper in the kitchen. That was home. But that home died the day he remarried, and I didn't even realize it until it was too late. I'm Harper Lane, 23 years old now, but back then I was just a 17-year-old girl trying to survive in a house that no longer felt like mine. When my dad married Clarissa Morgan, she swept in like a queen, heels clicking on the tile floors, wearing a smile that fooled everyone but me. At first, she was sugar, sweet. She bought me a new backpack for school, complimented my hair, and called me sweetheart with a voice like honey. But little by little, she took my home apart piece by piece. She started with the kitchen, replacing Mom's old mugs with her sleek white set, and packing my mother's hand-painted dishes into boxes for storage. Then came the living room, where she replaced our cozy family photos with glamour shots of herself and Dad smiling at charity galas I was never invited to. But the worst wasn't what she changed in the house. It was what she changed in him. Dad used to talk to me every night before bed. He used to call me his little star. But after Clarissa came, our talks got shorter, his eyes more tired, and every complaint I had was met with the same sentence. Harper, you need to try harder. She's really trying with you. Trying, no. She was calculating. Clarissa had a talent. She could destroy me in ways so subtle that Dad would never see the wreckage. She'd accidentally spill juice all over my homework. She'd hide my clean laundry and then laugh when I panicked before school. Once, I opened my shampoo bottle in the shower and felt my hair glue together in sticky clumps. I ran out screaming, only to find her standing in the hallway with a towel over her shoulder, smiling like she was on the cover of a magazine. "Oh, honey, it must be a product defect," she said. "I'll buy you a new one tomorrow." I wanted to tell Dad. I tried. But by the time he got home from work, she had dinner on the table, his favorite music playing, and that soft laugh ready to dismiss my complaints. "Ronald, she's just being dramatic. You know how teenage girls can be." And he believed her. Every single time. By the time Dad got sick, I was already a stranger in my own home. The diagnosis hit us like a freight train stage 3 pancreatic cancer. I wanted to take care of him. I wanted to sit by his side every minute. But Clarissa, she turned into a gatekeeper. 15-minute visits. Every other day, she said the doctor recommended. Low stress. But I knew better. I'll never forget the night I saw her leaning over his bed in the hospice, guiding his weak hand to sign papers I couldn't see. When I asked her what they were, she smiled that same perfect smile. "Oh, Harper, these are boring grown-up things. You wouldn't understand." And just like that, I realized I was losing my dad, and she was tightening her grip on everything he owned. The day my dad died, the house felt like a stranger. It was raining. Of course it was. I remember walking through the front door after the funeral, still in my black dress, still smelling the roses and lilies that had surrounded his coffin. And there she was, Clarissa, wearing my mother's pearl necklace, drinking coffee from my mother's mug, scrolling through her iPad at the same kitchen table where Dad used to help me with my homework. She didn't look sad. She looked free. "Oh, Harper, we need to talk about your living situation," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Before I could even sit down, she slid a piece of paper across the table. "An eviction notice. You've got 30 days to find a new place," she said matter-of-factly. "I think it's time you spread your wings. You're an adult now. And honestly, you're just a reminder of a past I need to move on from." I stared at her. This was the house where I learned to walk. The house where Dad carved my initials into the porch railing because I begged him to leave my mark on something permanent. And now this woman, this stranger who wore my mother's jewelry like a trophy, was telling me I didn't belong. I couldn't even speak. I just stood there, shaking, while she hummed to herself and swiped through real estate listings, probably deciding how fast she could sell my childhood home. That night, I sat on the floor of my empty bedroom, surrounded by half-packed boxes and memories I wasn't ready to let go of. Grief, anger, and panic tangled in my chest. I wanted to scream, to break something, to call Dad, but there was no one left to call. I cried until my face hurt. And then I remembered the envelope. 2 years ago, Dad had handed me a thick manila envelope and said, in the most serious voice I'd ever heard, "Harper, open this only if something happens to me. Only if she shows you who she really is." I'd tucked it away in my memory box, half convinced he was just being overprotective. But now, with my back against the wall, I opened it. Inside were 3 documents and a handwritten letter. "Harper, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and Clarissa has finally shown her true colors. I've seen how she treats you when she thinks I'm not looking. I want you to know I believe you, and I've made sure she can't take what's yours. Love you more than life." Tears blurred my vision, but I kept reading the documents. A deed transfer to a trust with me as the sole beneficiary. A prenup that left Clarissa nothing but the property she brought in. And a doctor's statement confirming Dad was of sound mind when he signed it all. In that moment, my grief sharpened into something else, a cold, clear determination. Clarissa thought she'd erased me, but she was about to learn that Dad had been protecting me long before she ever handed me that eviction notice. I wasn't going to wait 30 days. By tomorrow, she'd be gone. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. I sat on the floor of my bedroom with the envelope spread open beside me. The deed transfer, the prenup, the notarized doctor's letter. My hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from the electric pulse of justice finally within reach. I could almost hear Dad's voice in my head. "Be patient, Harper. When the time comes, you'll know what to do." The time was now. By dawn, I had my plan. Step 1. Secure the house. Step 2. Expose Clarissa. Step 3. Watch her crumble under the weight of her own arrogance. I started by calling Anderson & Cole, Dad's old law firm. The same firm that handled his trust. I emailed scanned copies of the documents and explained everything that had happened since the funeral. "Lane," the attorney said after reviewing the papers, "you are the sole legal owner of that property. If your stepmother refuses to vacate voluntarily, you are within your rights to have her removed immediately." Those words, they lit a fire in me I hadn't felt in years. At 8:30 a.m., I walked into the kitchen. Clarissa was in her silk robe, sipping her oat milk latte and scrolling through Zillow like she owned the world. Well, she said without looking up. "You're up early. Packing already." I set my coffee down, pulled out the deed, and slid it across the table. "You were right, Clarissa," I said calmly. "Someone does need to move out of this house. But it's not me." For the first time since I'd known her, her perfect mask cracked. She picked up the deed with shaky hands. Her eyes darted across the legal jargon. Then she let out a short, disbelieving laugh. This can't be real. "I'm his wife! I have rights!" "You do," I said, sliding the prenup across the table like the final card in a winning hand. "You have the right to take your car, and anything you personally brought into this marriage. That's it." The mug slipped from her fingers and shattered against the tile. Her face flushed red with fury. "You little snake! You've been planning this for years." "No," I said, my voice steady. "Dad planned this. He knew exactly who you were, and he made sure you could never hurt me again." Clarissa tried a new tactic: tears. Ugly, heaving sobs that echoed through the kitchen. She grabbed my hands and wailed, "Harper, please. I have nowhere to go. We're family. I can be better, I promise. Your father would want you to forgive me." I pulled my hands back slowly. "My father wanted me to survive you, and I'm finally doing that." Then, in full view of her wide, tear-streaked eyes, I called the locksmith. "Yes, this is Harper Lane at 241 Briarwood. I need all my locks changed today. Yes, it's an emergency situation." Clarissa's sobs turned into a low, venomous hiss. You'll regret this, she spat. You'll be alone forever. I'll see you in court. Then I'll see you from my porch, I said. By late afternoon, her designer luggage was stacked on the lawn. She stomped down the driveway, screaming about family loyalty and Christian charity, while the neighbors peeked through their curtains like it was the best reality show of the year. By sunset, she was gone, the house was mine. Quiet, safe, finally home. That night, I sat on the porch swing, watching the last bit of sunlight fade over the yard where I once played tag with Dad. The grief was still there, heavy as stone. But under it was something else. Relief. And the unshakable knowledge that I had finally taken my life back. The day after Clarissa drove away, I woke up to silence. No clinking heels on the hardwood. No fake humming in the kitchen. No perfume lingering in the hallway. Just silence. For the first time in years, the house actually felt like mine. But with that silence came a heavy ache I hadn't let myself feel until now. Dad was gone. I'd won the battle, but the victory felt hollow in the quiet. I spent the morning wandering through the house, touching every surface like I was relearning it. I opened the hall closet and saw my mom's old quilt, folded neatly under Clarissa's designer coats. I pulled it out and pressed it to my face. The faint smell of lavender and thyme, worn cotton, sent a wave of memories crashing into me. I realized then I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my family's history. Every scratch on the floor, every dent in the doorframe, it all belonged to us, not her. By noon, reality hit. I had a housey, but no clear plan for my own life. I'd left my part-time job months earlier to help with Dad's care, and my savings were barely enough for groceries. For the first time, I thought about what Dad would want me to do now. I found myself in his study, the room Clarissa never touched. Stacks of old photo albums and his favorite fountain pen sat waiting, like he'd just stepped out for coffee. I opened his last letter again. Harper, this house is yours because you're the only one who ever treated it like home. But don't let these walls trap you. Live your life. Build something new. And remember, home is wherever you refuse to be erased. I cried for the first time since she'd left. Not the angry, stifled tears I'd held in for years, but the messy, healing kind. The following weeks were a blur of rebuilding myself. I took long walks in the neighborhood, finally noticing how the maple trees formed a golden tunnel in the afternoon sun. I cooked Dad's favorite meals, even if I had to eat them alone at the big oak table. I started cleaning out the rooms she'd taken over. Bag after bag of her perfume, handbags and fake smiles thrown into storage. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I began to breathe again. I signed up for online classes in the evenings, revived my college plans Dad had once dreamed about. The house wasn't a prison anymore. It was my foundation, but one thing still lingered. Clarissa wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Thick paper, gold-trimmed. Her lawyer. She was contesting the trust, claiming Dad had been manipulated by me. I sat at the kitchen table, letter in one hand, coffee mug in the other, and felt the old fear rising, but then I smiled, because Dad had already prepared me for this. I had the documents, I had the law firm, and most importantly, I had the truth. Life has a way of testing how much you can endure before you realize you're stronger than the storm. I lost my father, fought for my home, and stared down the woman who tried to erase me. And I was still standing. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself after someone tried to break you? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And subscribe to Telling Story with me for more true stories about resilience, revenge, and survival. The envelope from Clarissa's lawyer sat on the kitchen table like a live grenade. I stared at the bold header. Now I so flige ing. Even after everything. She wasn't done. I tore it open and scanned the letter. Her lawyer was accusing me of undue influence over Dad, claiming I manipulated him into signing away the house while he was sick. They were demanding a court hearing to review the legitimacy of the trust. I laughed, a sharp, bitter laugh that echoed in the empty kitchen. If she thought she could win in front of a judge, she hadn't learned anything. The next morning, I walked into Anderson and Cole with my documents in hand. Mr. Coleman, Dad's longtime attorney, adjusted his glasses and said, "Harper, we expected this. Clarissa has a pattern." He flipped through the deed, the prenup, and the notarized doctor's statement. "These are airtight. She can scream, cry, and hire the most expensive lawyer in the city. It won't change the law." Still, he advised me to prepare for court. Because Clarissa wasn't just after the house anymore. She wanted to destroy me in public. 2 weeks later, the courtroom felt like another battlefield. Clarissa arrived in a black designer dress, pearls gleaming under the fluorescent lights, her eyes red from either real tears or well-practiced ones. The moment the judge called our case, she launched into her performance. "Your Honor," she said, voice trembling, "I loved Ronald like my own soul. But his daughter, Harper, she manipulated him when he was vulnerable. I was grieving my husband, and she threw me out onto the street like garbage. She even dabbed her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief." For a moment, the courtroom was silent. Then my lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we have 3 exhibits to enter into evidence. Exhibit A, the irrevocable trust deed, signed and dated 2 years before Dad passed, with full legal transfer of the property to me. Exhibit B, the prenup, signed by Clarissa herself, limiting her to the property she personally brought into the marriage. Exhibit C, the doctor's notarized statement, confirming Dad was of sound mind and under no duress at the time these documents were executed." Then my lawyer dropped the real bombshell, a USB drive with video footage from the hospice security cameras. The footage showed Clarissa blocking me from visiting my father and directing him to sign papers while he was sedated. The judge's eyes narrowed. Clarissa's lawyer shifted uncomfortably, and for the first time, I saw her confidence crack in public. The cross-examination was brutal. "Mrs. Morgan," my lawyer said, "do you deny that you attempted to evict my client the day after her father's funeral?" Clarissa hesitated. "Well, I was protecting my own security." "Security?" he interrupted. "Or were you trying to sell a house you had no legal claim to?" Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. She fumbled. Her voice wavered. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Morgan, based on the evidence presented, this court finds that the property rightfully belongs to Harper Lane. Your contest is denied. Any further harassment of the beneficiary will result in legal penalties." Walking out of that courtroom felt like stepping into sunlight after a storm. Clarissa brushed past me in the hallway, her face pale, her designer bag clutched like a lifeline. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You've humiliated me." I stopped, turned to her, and said softly, "No, you did that to yourself. Winning in court didn't just give me the house. It gave me back my voice. For years, I let someone rewrite my life as if I didn't exist. But standing in that courtroom, I realized something my dad always believed. No one can erase you if you refuse to disappear. Have you ever had to fight a battle no one believed you could win? Share your story in the comments below, and subscribe to Telling Story with Me for more stories of survival, justice, and the quiet strength that changes everything. Winning in court should have been the end. I thought I could finally breathe, finally walk through my house without feeling the ghost of Clarissa's perfume in the air. For a few weeks, life was quiet. I spent mornings on the porch swing, watching the sun spill over the maple trees Dad planted when I was little. I started a part-time remote job, signed up for my college courses again, and even baked cinnamon rolls using Mom's old recipe. The house was becoming a home again. But peace, I learned, can be fragile, and people like Clarissa don't disappear. It started with the cars. A black sedan would idle across the street some nights, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. Once I swore I saw the glint of a phone camera pointed at my window. Then came the letters. Anonymous envelopes slipped under my door. "Thieves never sleep peacefully. You stole everything from a grieving widow. This house won't protect you forever." I knew it was her. Her handwriting was disguised, but the perfume was the same one she always wore, sweet and sharp like overripe cherries. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself she was just bitter. But then the twist came. Something I didn't see coming, something that made my stomach drop. One chilly evening, I was organizing Dad's study, flipping through old photo albums and documents. Buried in the back of a filing cabinet, I found a small black safe I'd never seen before. The key was taped to the bottom drawer. Inside, there were three things: a stack of old family photos, some I'd never seen, a flash drive labeled insurance, a sealed letter addressed to me in Clarissa's handwriting. I froze. The letter read, "Harper, if you're reading this, then Ronald has gone through with his ridiculous plan. You think you've won, but you don't know the whole story. I suggest you watch the video on the flash drive before you celebrate. Clarissa." My hands shook as I plugged the flash drive into Dad's old laptop. There was only one video file. It was a hospice room recording, clearly from a camera Clarissa had hidden. At first, it was just Dad sleeping, and Clarissa humming softly as she adjusted his blanket. But then, he opened his eyes and whispered something. "Clarissa, take care of her. She's all I have." My chest tightened. Clarissa nodded on camera, tears in her eyes, real ones maybe for the first time. Then she leaned down and whispered, "I'll take care of her, Ronald, I promise." The video ended. I sat there stunned, because for one fleeting second, I saw the Clarissa my dad must have loved, the woman who, in some twisted way, might have once meant well. It didn't excuse what she'd done. The lies, the cruelty, the eviction notice the morning after the funeral. But it complicated everything. For the first time since this war began, I wondered if my revenge had truly ended it, or if I was now holding the same bitterness she had carried for years. Life isn't always a clean story of heroes and villains. Sometimes, the people who hurt you the most are also the people who once held your family together. And the victory you fight for might leave you with questions you didn't want answered. I couldn't sleep that night. The video kept replaying in my head, Dad's frail voice whispering, "Take care of her. She's all I have." For weeks, I had built my identity around victory, kicking Clarissa out, winning in court, and finally reclaiming the house that was mine. But now, sitting in the quiet study surrounded by the ghosts of my parents, I felt something I didn't expect to doubt. I spent the next morning walking through the house like a stranger. Every corner whispered a memory. The staircase, where Dad used to carry me on his back after I fell asleep watching TV. The kitchen, where Mom would hum old country songs while rolling dough. The hallway, where Clarissa's perfume once made me gag, now just a faint trace in the air. I had fought so hard to protect this house, but it wasn't really the walls I'd been fighting for. It was the love I'd lost, and no court victory could bring that back. By mid-afternoon, I found myself doing something unthinkable. I picked up my phone and called Clarissa. She answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and defensive. "What do you want, Harper? Haven't you humiliated me enough?" I hesitated. "I found the flash drive," I said quietly. "And the letter." There was silence on the other end. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. "I loved your father, you know. Even if I was awful to you, I loved him." "I believe you," I whispered, though part of me hated that I meant it. "We didn't reconcile." "Not really. Some wounds don't close just because you want them to. But we made a fragile truce. I would keep the house. She would stay out of my life. And I would stop letting bitterness define me. It wasn't forgiveness. It was release." That evening, I sat on the porch swing again, watching the golden light fall across the lawn. For the first time, the house felt like mine without feeling like a battlefield. I thought about Dad's last words, about the weight of promises and the price of revenge. I realized that sometimes winning doesn't mean destroying the other person. It means finally letting go. Life had taken everything from me, my parents, my peace, my sense of belonging. But it also gave me the one thing I didn't know I needed, a chance to choose who I wanted to be after the war was over. I chose peace. I chose to stop living in the shadow of hate. And in that quiet decision, I felt closer to my father than I ever had before. A year has passed since the day I took my house back. And for the first time in my life, it actually feels like home again. The walls that once echoed with tension and bitterness now carry the soft hum of my new life. I've repainted the kitchen a pale yellow, Mom's favorite color. I framed some of Dad's old photographs along the staircase, including one of him holding me on his shoulders at the county fair. And in the study, I placed a small shadow box on the shelf inside it. Dad's last letter, the house deed, and the eviction notice Clarissa once slid across the kitchen table. It's a reminder of how far I've come, and of the war I never asked for but survived. Clarissa never came back to the house. The last I heard, she moved to a condo across town and started a small event planning business. I haven't seen her in person since that final phone call, and I'm okay with that. There are days I still feel the sting of everything she did, but anger doesn't rule me anymore. I've learned that carrying hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I put it down, and for the first time, I feel light. Last weekend, I hosted my first family gathering in years. My cousins, my aunt, even my childhood best friend filled the living room. We laughed. We cooked together. We opened the windows and let the spring air drift through the house. And in that moment, I felt Dad with me. Not as a memory of loss, but as a presence in the home he entrusted to me. I finally understood his last lesson: home isn't a building. Home is the space you create when you stop letting anyone else decide your worth. I walked through fire and came out whole. I lost my father, fought a war for my home, and faced a truth that turned my revenge bittersweet. But in the end, I found something stronger than anger: peace. If you've ever survived something that nearly broke you, you know the quiet power of finally standing on your own 2 feet. Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you rose again. And subscribe to Telling Story with Me for more stories that start in pain but end in strength.